attorneys. If say my kid goes off to college and he's over 18 years old, and just give me your thoughts on this, and then Lee will let you ask more questions. If you, and there's a lot of people listening that are in this circumstance right now. So I'm paying for the tuition, or I co-signed on loans, whatever. I'm responsible for the tuition. I still give them a cell phone and pay for their cell phone. I might even pay for their rent if they're not in the dorm, or I'm paying for their tuition, which is part of the dorm. And they get into a car accident, but they happen to own their own car and have their own insurance of less than, let's say, whatever the state minimal is. There is times, because I'm still supporting that adult now that they're over 18, that they could still come after me if he created some incident in an auto accident. Isn't that correct?
Potentially under something called the family purpose doctrine,
yep.
But it's real fact specific, and
it
that's
depends.
A very question, yeah.
All right, Lee, you have any other questions for Dan?
Yeah, only thing I have is, okay, so I understand that I might have to do this, or I'm going to have to do it. What liability do I have as far as if it goes beyond the 300? That's what they said. The letter said that it could go beyond the 300, and I might consider lawyering up, basically. So my question is, what kind of lawyer do I need to find? Because I have no idea. And how much of my assets can they really come after?
Hold on a second, though. Dan, I just want to jump into something here, man. In his particular circumstance, we have no idea if he owns it or not. We have no idea if they're not even going to settle. Is that pretty much a form letter he's getting, or did they actually make a demand for more money? I mean, they might not even know what the policy limits are. I mean, is this pretty much standard practice? Apparently, it's just a broken leg that happened in the house.
No, it's not standard practice. Is the case in litigation, Lee? Has a lawsuit been filed?
I believe a lawsuit has been filed by the father, but they're saying the medical bills are going to go over $300,000, is what they're saying, because he's had to have multiple surgeries on the leg.
Yeah, so that's a severe injury. That's a bad injury. And to answer your question, pretty much the majority of your assets, other than retirement accounts and a homestead exemption that applies to a portion of the equity in your primary residence, are potentially in play here. So you do need a lawyer. There's a lot of issues, and Lee, I'd be glad to talk to you about this off air if you want to call my office.
Dan, do you guys do stuff like this?
I've acted as personal counsel in a handful of cases, and I would be glad to talk to you and tell you if I'm comfortable doing that in your case. And if I'm not, I know a couple guys that do a lot of that kind of work, much more than I do, and I would give you their contact info as well.
And you can also kind of look at the basics of the case and figure out if Lee's actually involved in this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose, we can...
He must be. If he got that letter, they must assume, because he co-signed, he's either on the deed, is on the deed. I mean, why would he get that letter? And that came directly to you, Lee, not the guy you co-signed for?
Correctly, but I'm on the insurance because I believe I'm the one on the deed, too. I must be on the lead.
Must be.
When we bought the house, we must have put it all as one.
All right, Lee, hold on a second. Let me give you his number right now. You got a pen?
Okay. Yes.
All right, so Dan's at 303-571-5302. 303-571-5302. And that's Denver Trial Lawyers. You got that? Just call him up when we hang up. Make an appointment to talk to him over the phone. And then I'm going to put you on hold. Hold on. I'm going to put you on hold, Lee. Hey, Dan, you got time for another question on medical malpractice?
Yes, I do.
All right. Hold on one second. We got to take a break because this one's probably going to be Heidi. It sounds pretty serious. Hold tight.
Mama, mamacita, ¿dónde está Santa Claus? The vato with a bony knees, he's coming down the street with no shoes on his feet, and he's going to... No, that ain't it. Mamacita, ¿dónde está Santa Claus? The guy with the hair on his jaws, Hey, man, come over here, man. I need some help, man.
Cheech and Chong.
Yeah, man, I can dig that.
Is this a Christmas song, too?
What are you doing, man?
I'm trying to write a song about Santa Claus, man. But
This proves my point. Everybody's got a
about
Christmas
Santa
carol.
Claus, man. You know Santa Claus,
Oh,
man.
yeah, man. I played with those dudes, man.
All right, 303-713. Yeah, you're supposed to start that, Ed, where the music was to come back in.
There is no music. It's all that.
Are you serious? Well, that's not a real Christmas song then, right?
Prove me wrong. That's a real one.
All right, so let's get Heidi up here. Heidi, what's going on?
Hi, guys. I just had a couple of questions. In March, I was this goes on for 2 months, but I apparently contracted the flu, and on March 9th. And I went into the doctor the following week, and they said, yes, you have the flu, but we don't have any flu shots or any flu test strips, so we can't test you, but let's just say you have the flu. And I had sores in my mouth, and they said, and you have strep in your mouth, but they didn't treat any of that. So I was in the doctor a total of 4 times between the second week of March and April 12th.
Okay.
And one of the times I was in the doctor, my pulse ox was 77%.
I'm sorry, your what?
The oxygen.
Oh, your oxygen. Okay.
It should be well above 90.
So what ultimately happened, though, Heidi? Let's fast forward. I assume you did have the flu?
Well, it turned into April 12th. I coded. My kids found me.
Oh.
I ended up having a collapsed lung. My chest was so full of blood and pus, it moved my heart all the way to the right side of my chest. I spent a week in the ICU, another regular ward. I had chest tubes. I had drainage from my lungs, severe septic. As a result of that, I do have some memory loss and some scarring in the lung, and my doctor takes no accountability. I've never had a chest x-ray while I was seeing him. He said my lungs sounded great, but it couldn't because it was collapsed.
Heidi, you went in 4 times to that same doctor. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, sir.
That's incredible. I mean, first of all, I'm sorry to hear you went through all that, and I'm glad to hear that you're doing better, although it sounds like you might have some possibly damage that lasts a long time. Dan, what is your initial feeling on that? And Dan Sloan's with Denver Trial Lawyers on a referral list at referralist.com. I mean, people talk about, I assume where you're going, Heidi, is you think this doctor was just very neglectful, didn't do his job, and you're thinking malpractice? Am I correct there?
Absolutely.
So, Dan, my understanding, that's one of the hardest things to prove. He offered what?
He also altered my chart.
Oh, altered.
Yes, he did. He changed. I have a medical assistant that knows my pulse ox, the pulse ox machine alarmed and sounded at 77%, but he put it was 84. And he sent me home and told me to go to bed.
Dan, what's your initial thoughts on everything you just heard?
Well, so the first thing I want to comment on is what you said, is that these cases are incredibly difficult to prove, and they're incredibly expensive to prove. Was there negligence in this case? I can't say 100%, but sure, it sounds like maybe the doctor missed something. But I always caution everybody I talk to about a malpractice case that a bad result doesn't necessarily mean that there was negligence, because medicine is a science, but it's also somewhat of an art, and it depends on your presentation on those 4 times. But it doesn't, certainly you don't expect to go to your doctor with flu symptoms and wind up in the hospital in as horrible condition as you did, Heidi.
With a collapsed lung.
Right, with a collapsed lung. The way we would need to evaluate these cases is kind of what's the long-term effect of all of this? What's the outcome? Heidi, I would tell you one thing, that you're very fortunate that you didn't end up with some sort of hypoxic brain injury that really lays you out for the rest of your life, to where you can't work, you can't walk, you can't talk, you can't function, because it sounds like there was a lack of oxygen. I did hear what you said about having potentially some memory problems that are permanent, and let's keep our fingers crossed that that's not the case. But it's always hard to say just from hearing a few facts. Yes, there's negligence. The other thing that's important to prove and very difficult, and this is where these cases are often fought, and this is where the battleground is on causation. What did the negligence cause? We oftentimes see misdiagnoses of cancer cases, but it's impossible to prove that missing cancer for 6 months caused a different sort of outcome. So there's a lot to consider in these cases. It's really, really almost impossible to tell someone just from hearing a minute or two of facts whether this is a viable case.
And Dan, don't you need another doctor to look at the records and also agree that it was egregious? This doctor should have never have done this. You have to have actually another physician go against this one, right?
Well, so I think what you're talking about is an evaluation, because we have to file what's known as a certificate of review. That's the very first step in even considering a malpractice case. And we have to get another physician in the same or similar specialty area to say that this particular physician acted, that there is a substantial justification for bringing the claim.
Got it.
And that's the threshold right there, but that's not even close to the end analysis.
No, I got you.
The end
One
analysis,
thing that worries me, though, if he altered the chart, that is a slam dunk no-no. Don't you agree, Dan?
Well, it's definitely a slam dunk no-no, and we love to catch them altering charts, which we do on occasion. But it's always easier said than done. I mean, this PA or nurse practitioner is very unlikely to come in and say, yeah, Dr. Smith or Jones altered the chart.
Yeah. And by the way, just so you know, Dan, that's one of our volunteers. We call him Deputy Doc. He delivered thousands of babies over the year. Now he's one of our volunteers. So he's a little familiar with insurance when it comes to doctors. So Heidi, do you have any more questions for Dan? The burden of proof is pretty hard in these cases. These guys will sit down with you, though, at no cost and talk about the case and see and see if there's something there.
Well, the last time this physician saw me, I was apparently in severe septic shock, and that's when he sent me home and told me to go to bed.
But Heidi, let me play devil's advocate. I'm the judge. Okay, prove that to me, Heidi.
Okay.
I'm being serious. How would you prove that? I'm just asking. I'm curious. Did you leave that office and go directly to the hospital and they told you that? I'm not trying to beat you up. I'm just saying, you saying that, how would you prove that?
That's right. That'd be difficult.
And I don't know, but I mean, Dan can talk to you on this kind of stuff and tell you that. So I really think you should give them a call. Regardless, you should talk directly with someone over there, either Dan or someone else at Denver Trial Lawyers for sure.
Okay. I'd be happy to talk with you if you give us a call, Heidi, and we can go into a little more detail.
Yeah, they can go into more detail and really look into the case and see if you do have a case. The hardest part, like you said, we get a lot of these calls, Heidi, and it's not that I like, but what Dan said about the cancer part, if someone misdiagnosed cancer, and that would be very upsetting to anybody. But eventually, if they would have got cancer, even if they didn't diagnose it, and the end result would still be the same, I don't think there's really much of a case there. Is that correct, Dan?
Yes.
That's the whole problem. If the end result, even if the doctor you went to did everything you said incorrectly, could he have stopped it? I mean, a lot of the stuff comes down to that. Hey, Dan, really quick, Heidi, hold on. You ready for his number? Heidi?
I am.
303-571-5302. 303-571-5302. And his name is Dan Sloan, but that's Denver Trial Lawyers. They're all great over there. I mean, every single one of them.
Okay.
Got it? All right. I appreciate that. And Dan, real quick, I have to say something. I never laughed so hard on the last break. When I first started talking to you, I apparently said something that you did not understand. I said, hold on, I got to speak slowly because Dan's slow. I wasn't talking about you.
I think he might have.
I was talking about our resident deputy dad, who was trying to tell me that, whatever, it had nothing to do with you. Suzanne came in here tripping over herself, laughing, going, you basically just made the attorney think you had to talk